Okay, so here's our painting for today. We are painting this lovely, this is from the coast of Washington coast. It's the Quileute Beach. It's called First Beach, I think. And it's got all these really beautiful sea stacks out on the water. And I just love these views. I have been to this beach. This is not my reference photo, though. It's from Unsplash, which is a royalty-free website, which is where I find a lot of my reference photos. If you are watching this on YouTube later, the reference photo is linked in the description of the YouTube video. But if you're watching live right now, here is the reference photo. I've got it up on my computer. I will come back to this and show it to you as we are painting, but if you want to take a screenshot of it now, just so that you have a version of it, you can take a screenshot now. Yes, it is from Twilight. This is, I mean, they didn't film it here. They filmed it in Oregon somewhere, but this is like the beach that it's referencing. That's the Quileute Reservation. And the beach that they have there. Yes, La Push. So feel free to take a screenshot. The way that we're going to be painting this is basically from top to bottom and backward to forward. So we're going to paint the sky first, then we'll paint these sea stacks that are above the horizon line, then we'll paint in the reflection in the water here. So we'll do this kind of top to bottom. It's going to be fun. So, yeah, we've had kind of 2 Twilight-inspired paint and sips in a row now, which I'm not mad about. I am from the Pacific Northwest. I'm from Washington, so this is a very, nostalgic. I love painting these scenes. These are just my favorite scenes to paint. So here's the painting as well, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our materials. So for the paper that I'm going to be using today, it is this Baohong watercolor block. I found this on Amazon. It's in my Amazon storefront, which is linked to my bio as well. And a watercolor block means that the pages are all glued together on the sides, so you can see they're all glued together except for this one little space here where they're not. And what the glue does is it holds it down tight, and so while you're painting on it, it doesn't warp quite as much, and you don't have to tape it down. And then once you're done with your painting, you just slip a little knife or like a little tool in there in between this page and the next one, and then you break the glue seal around the edges, and then you have your painting. So I like working with watercolor blocks for paint and sips and stuff, especially when I know I'm going to be done with the painting. So this is a good option for you. I just want you to know that if you buy a watercolor block, the pages will be glued on the sides, just so you know. All right. And then my watercolors for today are going to be these this watercolor set that I helped design with Artistro. My name is on the front here. I designed this with them to be like kind of a professional watercolor set. The paints are a little higher quality than you'd find in a beginner set. And they're also really big, so you've got a lot of paint to work with. It comes with 2 brushes and a little mixing palette in the lid. That's a little plug for you. This set is available on Amazon if you want to check it out. But this is what I'll be using today. Regardless of what set you're using, you should be able to find similar colors to the ones that I have in here today in any watercolor set that you're using. So just use whatever you have at home, but if you're in the market for a new one, this is a good option for you to check out. And then I've got a couple brushes for today as well. I've got this 12 round from Princeton Neptune, which is a large round brush. I've got this 4 round from Princeton Neptune as well, which is kind of a medium to small brush. And then I've got a little detail brush from Kristy Rice's paint set. So a small, medium, and a large brush. That's really all you need. You need a cup of water, paper towels, a pencil would be nice. But other than that, we should be good to go. So first step of this painting here, if I just can reorganize my workspace, is to put some water into each of our watercolor pans. And this is what we do at the beginning of every painting, just to make sure our paints are ready to be painted with. Dry watercolor pans are hard to work with because they require water to work. So what I do is just put a little bit of water into each one and let it sit for a minute before we get started. And this just helps to dissolve the paint a little bit. And as you do this, just a reminder that this is a 1 hour-ish lesson. Try not to put too much pressure on yourself to make a perfect painting. It's hard to do in an hour. My painting won't be perfect. Yours probably won't be either. That's not the point. We are just trying to have fun. I hope you learn something. I hope you enjoy painting with other people. And yeah, I hope you take that away from it instead of trying to be a perfectionist and make a perfect painting. In general, I hope that's the attitude that you take with painting, especially if you're new. So be nice to yourselves, be nice to each other in the comments, be nice to me, and we will all be very happy for this hour together. And I will also try to answer questions as I paint, but I do have to paint and talk and read comments at the same time. So if I miss your question, please feel free to just ask it politely again. And if someone asks a question that I've already answered, please do feel free to answer it for them in the comments. Will this live be posted on YouTube? Yes. If you aren't using a block, can we tape the edges, or does it need to be able to move? You can definitely tape the edges. I like to tape the edges of the paper to a board or something. I use like a little piece of cardboard, and I'll tape it to this, and that way I can still move the painting depending on which way I want my hand to go, but then it's taped down still. So that's what I like to do. You can use anything to tape it down. You could tape it to a book, a piece of cardboard, anything that's just, you know, small and movable. All right. Now, before we get started on our painting, we need to do a little bit of sketching. So for our sketch, I'm going to use a ruler and a pencil because of who I am as a person. If you don't have a ruler or don't feel like using one, you don't need to. I'm going to move this right here as well. Okay. So for this sketch, all we need to sketch out is the horizon line and our main C stacks right here. Okay, so I'm going to put the horizon line about halfway up the paper. And again, I have to measure because of who I am as a person, but you don't have to. Just sketch a horizontal line roughly across the center of your paper. But if you'd like to measure, I just measure the same distance on each side and then connect them with a line like that. And I'm drawing lightly, so it might be a little hard for you to see, but I will show a close up as well. So there's our horizon line. And then we're going to sketch out this main C stack. And I just want you to notice that the C stack is off to the left, right? If we look at about halfway up the page, if we divide the reference photo in half, the edge of the C stack is basically at halfway, a little over halfway up the paper. So if I do that to my paper here, the edge of the C stack will be here, and then the beginning of it will be here-ish. And then we can just connect to those lines. That way you don't like over emphasize the size of this thing. It's not as big as it looks. And just a little rough shape should be fine. Doesn't have to match exactly. Something like that. We can sketch in the little smaller C stacks that you see on the horizon line here. Your voice is magical. Oh, thank you. I lost my voice earlier this week. I've had a little bit of a cold, so if I'm coughing a little bit throughout this live, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best not to. Last line we're going to draw is the dividing line between where the waves are and where the wet sand is, where we see this reflection. And that's very, very close to the horizon line here. And then it just goes down in a slight diagonal towards the right. It takes up a lot less space than you think it does. This should be a pretty skinny section. So something like that. Okay. So once you're done with your sketch, again, it should not take you that much time. Just a rough sketch. We will go back to our paints. And the last thing I'm going to do, and you do not have to do this, this is optional, I'm going to take a piece of tape and put it at the horizon line. And this will just help us create a nice, perfectly straight horizon line without having to paint it. But if you don't have masking tape on you, or if you don't feel like doing this, this is completely optional. So I'm just putting this right here at the edge of the horizon line, and I'm going to press it down with my thumbnail to get a good seal. All right, so our paper's prepped. You should have your sketch done, and we will go over to our paints. So for the first section, we're gonna do the sky section first. We're gonna mix 3 colors. The first one is going to be like a light pink. So I'm going to use alizarin crimson, which is just a red. And I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow ochre to it, which is this kind of golden yellow. And we're going to water these colors down a bit. And we're also going to use a wet on wet technique on the paper because we want these to be very light pastel colors. So we're not adding a ton of paint here. Okay. Next color is going to be just yellow ochre. So you'll see it on its own here. It looks like this. Again, not a ton of paint, plenty of water. And I'm using a large brush as well. And last color is going to be ultramarine blue. So again, this one was alizarin crimson and yellow ochre. This one and this one. This one is just yellow ochre and this one is just ultramarine blue. So get those ready on your mixing palette. Yes, I can swatch them. Get my swatch paper here. Your colors do not have to match mine exactly. We're just going for a sunrise look here. So a red, yellow, and blue is all you need for this. So don't worry if they don't match mine exactly. So that's what the red looks like. Got yellow ochre. And ultramarine blue. That needs a little bit more paint. All right, so they should be about this consistency when you swatch them by themselves. All right, so what we're gonna do now is put a layer of water onto the top half of this paper, everything above the horizon line. Then those three colors are gonna go in that order, red, yellow, and blue. And we're gonna blend them together on the paper. So if you'd like to watch me first, you can. I will give you a minute to catch up after I'm done painting. I'm going to use my large brush still, putting a layer of water down on the top half of the page. I'm moving my head around, making sure I have the whole page covered. There we go. And then once that's ready, I'm just gonna go straight into my red. Did not know that. Apparently I'm not allowed to direct people to buy things outside of TikTok. I just got a live warning. Okay, interesting. Then I'm going into the yellow and I'm putting that here in the middle using horizontal brush strokes. Then we're going into the blue and we're starting at the top and we are moving that down the page and connecting that with the yellow. All right, so then you should have all of the colors together there. And then we can go from the bottom with a damp brush, connecting everything, blending everything together, working up towards the top. You can do that a couple times, just clean off your brush, take off some of the water so it's just damp, and then go from the bottom to the top with horizontal brush strokes, blending everything together. Then once everything's blended, you can just leave it alone. And we'll stop there, let that dry all the way. So if you were letting me paint, you can go ahead and catch up now. Again, you're gonna put a layer of water down and then put our three colors on there, red, yellow, and then blue, and blend those together with a damp brush. Try and work somewhat quickly because if it starts to dry, you'll start to get some weird textures. So do your best to do this before it dries. Okay, and then I'm going to go back into the comments here. How much water would you say on the page? Like 3 drops. It's just like it's like a good layer of water. Like the paper is wet. Couple brushfuls. Since when you can't tell people where you get supplies? That's crazy. I know. It's so annoying. I didn't know that was a rule now. Blue on the screen to dry it. Did you apply all the colors with the rounded tip or the large brush? With my large brush, it's a round brush, so it looks like this. We're starting to get some sunshine in here, so I'm going to close my blinds real quick. Well, I guess we'll have to talk in like coded language if you have questions about my supplies. You'll find everything where you find most, where you find most things. Can you speak in code and tell you about those? I can tell you about them, yeah. I guess I can't direct you to buy them. But the watercolor palette is the one that I helped design with Artistro. It has 24 colors and a mixing palette and 2 brushes. It looks like this. Blink in the Lio. To let it dry, do we just wait? It's cold here, so it will take a while. Yes, so we do have to let it dry. I like to use my hair dryer to speed up that drying time because I don't like watching paint dry. And that really helps speed things up. So if you have a hair dryer in your home, you can go grab it, and that will help speed things up. I will use mine in just a second here. Are you familiar with Canson watercolor paper? I am. I'm not the biggest fan of that watercolor paper. It's great for like budget art supplies because it's not expensive at all, and it's decent, but it's not 100% cotton watercolor paper, and I prefer to use 100% cotton. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my workspace here while we're waiting. What brand is your favorite? Yeah, see, here's where we're getting into the weeds about what I can and can't say anymore on lives. I might end up moving these to YouTube if that's going to be the case, because that's going to be really annoying. It's part of the reason I do these lives. What about the cotton paper is better? It just helps, it absorbs the paint and water a lot better. Paper that is not 100% cotton does not like absorb the colors like this, and you can see how we have like a really nice smooth blend of paint on here, and that is what happens when you have 100% cotton watercolor paper. So it just helps like absorb and like spread out the paints really nicely, and it just is better for watercolor painting. Kind of creepy that they're listening, I know. It's weird. Are we going to need to mix up those colors again? Yes, but we're going to change them a little bit. So I need the room in my palette for the next step. So I just went ahead and cleaned it up. But if you have room in your palette to leave them, please feel free to leave them. I just wanted to get my palette cleaned up for the next step. I'm going to go ahead and use my hairdryer on this section now, just so that we can keep moving. I don't think it's copyright. I think it's that they don't want people to be leaving TikTok. They want people to stay on the app, and so they're going to try and keep you from talking about leaving the app. I need one brush for thin details, but don't know how to ask. Boy. This is going to be tough, dude. I don't know what's going on here. I've never had that notification before, and I've said the same things in all of my lives. This is crazy. Will the color bleed into the paper underneath? No, watercolor paper is very thick, and so paint never bleeds through watercolor paper. Even if you put like really like dark layers of color. You can see I have like paintings on both sides of the page, and it doesn't bleed through. You have to use the word opinion. It's only your opinion. Wording is key. Okay, cool. In my opinion, the good brands of brushes are Princeton Neptune, and Kristy Rice has a good brush set as well. That's my opinion. And I am not directing you to buy those or any brand of brush. You can do whatever you want. TikTok. This is ridiculous. Okay, let's go ahead and mix up our next colors here. This is gonna be rough. Thank you all for bearing with me as I figure this new thing out. We are going to be painting the rock stack now. And so what we are, I feel like I'm in Brave New World. I know, honestly, 1984 kind of settings. For the rock stack here, what we're going to be doing is creating a set of 4, I think, colors that are all going to be matching-ish for this rock stack, and I'll show you what I mean. So all of the colors that we're about to mix are going to have burnt umber in them, which is a brown. So it looks like this. It's just kind of a warm brown. So one color is going to be just burnt umber, this brown here. Next color is going to be brown and ultramarine blue, so brown and blue. And that will make a darker, more neutral looking brown. That's going to be for the shadows. Then we'll use brown and yellow ochre. Brown, yellow ochre, and that's going to be a nice lighter, warmer brown. And I'll go over these again, so don't worry if you're not catching these. Last one is going to be brown and green. So brown and sap green. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit of darker green in there too. Okay, so again, this was just burnt umber and ultramarine blue, burnt umber and yellow ochre, burnt umber and green. So you're just adding different colors to the base of burnt umber. Count how many times I'm about to say burnt umber on this live. So there's that original. Again, apparently I am getting in trouble for directing people to buy things outside of TikTok. So you guys are gonna have to help me out there. Good thing burnt umber is a brand, exactly. So that's the burnt umber and ultramarine blue there. This one is the burnt umber and yellow ochre. I can actually lighten that up just a little bit more. And this one is the burnt umber and green. So these are different colors. You can see we've changed them, and we have like a different color palette, but it's all harmonious because it has the same base color. That's called a mother color, and it means that you're using the same color in each mixture to make them harmonize a little bit. And that's what we're doing here. Yes, tapping and sharing helps too, exactly. We love the TikTok shop, exactly. Let's see, I'm sorry. Do you wipe your brush between colors or dip in water? I dip it in water and then quickly wipe it on my paper towel, just so I don't contaminate the rest of the colors. Although I'm not that careful about it, as you can see. There's other colors in the palette here. All right, so we're gonna go back to our paper here. Now the general idea for painting this C stack is that the light is coming from the right. So this section here is going to be lighter, and this section is going to be darker and cooler. So we're going to use the blue version of the burnt umber over here and the warmer tones over here. All right, so just follow me on this one. This is going to take a little bit of improvising for you. Be brave. And you're just going to mix all of the colors together on the paper. So what I'm going to do here, I'm starting with just the regular burnt umber, and we're just going to put that in a few sections following kind of a vertical squiggly pattern. Then maybe I'll shift over to my yellow, put that in while that paint is still wet. And I'm going to create a nice outline there. Switch back and forth. We're just creating some different shapes. I've got a little shadow here, so I'll use the blue version, put in that little crack for the shadow there. Switch back and forth. And then the green is going to go on the top. So before anything dries, I'm just going to put some green at the top here, blend that in with the rest of the colors. I know this is not making a ton of sense. I realize that. But basically, we're just switching back and forth between the colors, using these vertical brush strokes to create this texture and just the color variation that we're looking for. So switch back and forth between the colors willy-nilly. It does not really matter. You can also go back and use a dry brush, completely dry brush, pick up some extra paint, especially here on the right side of the rock stack, and create some highlights. All right, so that's all I'm going to ask you to do. Go back and forth between those colors and just create those little variations in color as you move your way across. And this is something that takes practice, so if you don't nail it on the first try, that is okay. It requires practice, so be nice to yourself. You can go back to the other colors too if you want to add a little bit more detail here. I'm just following the contours of the rock, using a light touch with my brush, just creating little details here and there. Try to be as random as you can. Bob Ross of watercolors. Thank you so much. Okay, with these colors, I'm going to use, let's see. I'm going to mix these two colors together. So the yellow brown and the blue brown, and add a little bit of water to them. And I'm going to use that lighter color. It looks like this. Just kind of back to kind of a neutral brown. And adding a little bit of water to it, and I'm going to use that to fill in the little extra sea stacks that you see in the distance here, just the little small ones. And we can have a little... These won't have as much detail because they're in the distance here. You can add a little water to water down that color a little bit and create a little color variation. So that should look like that. Okay. Then I'm going to heat this up with a hairdryer so that I can take off the tape. That usually helps to release the glue on the tape, helps keep things from tearing the paper. How's everybody doing? If you're painting along with me, let me know where you're at, if I'm going too slow or too fast. Do you prevent dryer from spreading colors everywhere? So I use the lower setting so it's not blowing as much air. And then when the paper is really wet and I don't want the colors to move, I hold it pretty far from the paper. And just a little, that little extra air will help it dry. And then once it gets a little bit more dry, I can hold it closer. If the page is not that wet, like for this rock here, because the paint is pretty thick, it won't really move around that much, so that doesn't really matter quite as much. But for the like big washes of color, I'll hold it farther away. I was not prepared this morning. My painting is still very wet. Okay, still on the big rock. Someone asked how you duplicate the color if you run out. You just try your best to mix it again. That's a tough thing, and you have to kind of train yourself to mix more of every color than you think you need, because you will always need more than you think you need. And so that's just like that's a canon event that every watercolor artist has to go through. Do you post the saved videos on YouTube? Yes, I do post the the recordings of all of these lives on my long form social media channel, which is Hannah Art and Prince. God, just have to talk in this coded language. It's ridiculous. Okay, I'll answer some questions here. Can you create an Amazon list for your materials that you use, including paper? I do, and I have one, and it's where you would expect to find one. For those who are just dropping in, I got a warning earlier in this video that I was not allowed to promote things outside of TikTok, so I am having to act like it's 1984. The thought police are onto me. It is the Washington coast, for those who are wondering where this is. It's First Beach, I think, or Second Beach. Let me see. Second Beach. La Push, Twilight vibes. This is Quileute Reservation, La Push. Thank you. Diane, you're the best. TikTok shop has some great blow dryers. Exactly. Excited for your new book to come out. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's another thing I should bring up. I do have 2 books. The first one is called Watercolor Wanderlust. That one is basically these paint and sip sessions in book form. And then I have another book coming out in January called Watercolor Boot Camp. Pre-orders for that are open now. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about that either. But you are all smart people. I think you can catch the pattern here. Again, the first one is called Watercolor Wanderlust, and the second one, the new one, is called Watercolor Boot Camp. So it's 30 lessons in 30 days, or you can do them as often or as not often as you want, but it's 30 lessons, and it goes from like very beginning art principles to completed watercolor paintings and sort of experimentation with watercolor. So it kind of takes you through linearly. All right. Just discovering your account through this live, so I'll be doing a deep dive for you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, make sure you guys follow me here on TikTok. We're just sicking around on TikTok here. You guys can follow me and, watch my videos. It looks just like me, exactly. Oh, God, it's ridiculous. Okay, let's go ahead and keep moving here. I've got things to do after this live, so we can't sit here and chat, although I do love doing that with you guys. So I'm going to go back into my green here. Again, burnt umber, a little bit of sap green. I ended up adding a little hooker's green to this as well, which is a color name, not a derogatory term for anyone listening. And I'm going to switch over to my small brush, my little detail brush. And we're going to add some trees to the top of this rock stack, which we can see in the reference photo. So I'm just going to use my small brush. I'm going to zoom you in here. I know. So it's an unfortunate color name. It is someone's last name. That's what it was named after. But it's an unfortunate color name for today's language. So here we go. We're adding trees. These trees are pretty distant, so they're not going to be too detailed. What we're going to do is add a little line for the trunk, and then just go back and forth adding sparse branches, just kind of back and forth in a V shape like this. And we're just going to layer these together. What time do you start these lives? They always start at 1 p.m. Eastern time, I should say. 1 p.m. my time. And they are always on Saturdays. And I've gotten into a good habit of doing them every other weekend. So you can always check my page on Thursdays. That's when I announce whether there's going to be a paint and sip that Saturday or not. Ah, yes, Eastern time. The time zones are tricky. They really will get you. I'm delaying my plans today to watch. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So again, we're just adding some clumps of trees here to the top of this rock. Some of these rocks just get so big that they have trees growing on them, which is crazy. And the procedure here is just a vertical line and then back and forth, adding longer and longer lines that are kind of pointed upward like a V shape. Thank you guys for directing people where to go. I appreciate it. And I like to leave a little space between these trees as well sometimes. I don't want to fill up the whole top of this rock with trees, so I'm just adding like little clumps of trees. And thanks for all the likes as well, guys. We're up to 20,000, which is really cool. I really appreciate it. The likes do help push the TikTok live out to more people on the algorithm, which we love and adore, don't we, guys? We love TikTok. What was the green mix again? It was burnt umber, sap green, and hooker's green, which again is a last name, not a derogatory term. Cannon Beach. It is Second Beach, actually, in La Push in Washington. But very similar. The Washington and Oregon coast are similar in vibe, where they have these sea stacks out on the water. Haystack Rock actually doesn't have trees on the top of it. It is just bare. But these sea stacks have trees. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call that good. Maybe I'll add one in here. Fill up this space a little bit. All right, so now it's time to do the bottom half of this painting. We got to keep moving. If you're not quite done with the trees, that's okay. You can always go back and add more. We can move on to the next step and you can just come back to the trees later. So don't worry. Okay, I need to remix some colors here. So I'm going to clean off my paper, or my mixing palette, I mean. I've gotten questions before about how mixing palettes, sometimes the paint will bead and not spread out like this. That often happens, and I just figured I'd answer it here because I get the question a lot. That often happens with a lot of palettes when they are manufactured. I think there's something about the manufacturing process that makes them water repellent. There are some things that you can do to make that not happen, but I find that if you just use the mixing area, that will stop. You just kind of wear it down a little bit and you develop this like layer and the paint spreads out nicely. So you just have to use the mixing palette, and that's not just this palette, that's any palette. So add water to the palette before removing to add a new one. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, especially if the paint's dry or it's starting to dry, it just makes it easier to wipe up with paper towel. All right, so what we're gonna do is go back to those same colors that we used for the sky section. So that was the alizarin crimson, the yellow ochre, and the ultramarine blue. And for this section, we're gonna add a little bit of ultramarine blue to every color. So here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna mix those same colors that we used for the sky, just as we did before. So again, this was alizarin crimson and yellow ochre. This one is just yellow ochre, and adding plenty of water to these paints as well. And then this one is ultramarine blue. Again, adding plenty of water. Now what we're gonna do is add a little bit of ultramarine blue to each of these two colors as well. So I'm gonna add a little bit to this one, and just a tiny, tiny bit to the yellow ochre. And that was too much, so I'm gonna have to do it again. It's just like the tiniest bit. It shouldn't change the color too much. It should just look a little bit duller. And that can take a little bit of finessing, because there we go, that's it. So the reason we're doing this is because we're painting the reflection now, and the reflection is always going to be just a little bit darker and more blue than what's in the sky. And so we're adding a little bit of ultramarine blue to these colors now to change them and make it look like an accurate reflection. Hopefully that makes sense. This is a good technique that you can use for any water painting. When you're painting a reflection, you just change the colors just a little bit, add a little bit more blue to each of them, and it will look a little bit more realistic. And we need one more color here. We just need a general color that's going to match the rocks, the sea stack. So I'm gonna go burnt umber and ultramarine blue, just a little bit. And this color we're gonna keep concentrated. So sorry, this is 4 colors. So alizarin crimson and yellow ochre combined, just yellow ochre, just ultramarine blue, and then we add a little bit of ultramarine blue to each of these as well. Just a tiny, tiny bit. And then this one is one of the same colors that we just used for the sea stack. Ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Okay. This is another time where if you'd like to watch me do this section, you can. This is going to be a wet on wet technique again. So we are going to basically do the same thing that we did in the sky section. So I'm going to put down a layer of water. Nice, generous layer of water with my brush. And I'm going to try and take this right to the edge, right to my horizon line here. Do your best. Sometimes it's good to just leave a little bit of space between, just like a little sliver of paper between this and what was above. Fill in everything here. Then we're going to use the colors in a mirror image, so a reverse. So we're going to start with the red. That's going to go right here at the horizon line. Using horizontal brush strokes, just bring that across. Then I'll rinse my brush, take a little water off, go to my yellow ochre, put that down here, another little stripe, and then I'll go to my ultramarine blue. Start that at the bottom here, bring it up, and then I'll use a clean, damp brush and just blend all of that together. Horizontal brush strokes work from top to bottom now. And the reason we work from top to bottom is we always go from our lighter colors to our darker colors when we make a gradient. If I were to start from the bottom and work up, the blue would swallow all of these colors. So you want to make sure you start with your lightest colors and then work towards the darkest colors. And I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Now, before this dries, this is another step that we have to do. I'm taking my smaller brush, my 4-round brush, going into this brown. And we're going to create the reflection of this sea stack while everything is still wet. So using this, I'm going to go right below. I'm going to figure out where the reflection is going to be. It's going to be a mirror image. And if you remember, we drew that slightly diagonal line that's going to indicate where the ocean is. It's going to be right below that. So we're leaving space here and using horizontal brush strokes and just filling in a general shape that reflects the shape of the sea stack. Go back into these colors. It helps if this color that we're using, this brown color, is really concentrated because we're putting it onto the wet paper. It's going to dilute a little bit. I can't talk today. And I'm just using horizontal brush strokes and kind of building up this shape. Okay. Then, if you want to, you can leave it there. That's totally fine. You can also take a clean, dry brush and just carve out the outside of this shape, continuously drying it off, and this will help just kind of contain the paint that we just put down to where we just put it. And you can fix the edges. So it looks like that. You can always go back to that brown color if you want to add more. Don't worry about the reflections of these other sea stacks. They are too far away to have a reflection. So all we're worried about is this one. All right. We are getting there, folks, I promise. Thank you guys for answering questions. Appreciate it. All right, how's this going for everybody? Once you've done your reflection, by the way, you can just let it dry all the way. We've got a couple more little details to add, but we're on the home stretch here. Book will be on your, yes, the book will be, you'll find the book, you know, in the blink in the Lio. That's where, that's where you'll find everything. Anywhere you buy books. You live in a busy street, I know. My, let's see, what are we looking for? The name of it is Watercolor Boot Camp. That's my new book that's coming out in January. Would be a great holiday gift as well. Yeah, the busy street is unfortunate. I also, my studio is in a sunroom, and so it's got no insulation, and so it just is the whatever noise is going on outside is also going on inside. It's kind of the deal, unfortunately. All right, I'm gonna use a hairdryer, get this dry here. Feel free to do the same. Yay for new books, exactly. Very exciting. Okay. Sorry for the noise. I know it's annoying. Just gotta keep things moving here. Here we go. All right, last couple of steps here, I promise. We're gonna add in the ocean now. So what we're going to do is to the ultramarine blue that we have here, we're just gonna add a little bit of yellow ochre. Just gonna create kind of a greenish, like a very, very muted green. I'm just gonna add a little bit at a time until I get the color that I like. And I will swatch this for you. These two colors together are, they just don't mix into green, honestly. They mix into kind of a gray, but I love this for ocean scenes. So it looks kind of like that. Would you consider this landscape beginner or somewhere in between beginner and intermediate? I would definitely consider it more intermediate. There's a lot of different techniques here, and so if you're completing this and you're a beginner, you're doing a great job. Even if you're not super happy with your painting, this is definitely a more complicated lesson than we have done in the past. So, you know, pat yourself on the back. What we're gonna do with this gray color, once you've mixed it, I'm gonna take a little bit off of my brush with my paper towel. So it's just a little bit on there. And we're gonna use what's called a dry brushing method, where as I'm scraping my brush onto my paper, the paint is breaking over the texture of the paper and just creating a really nice ocean texture. And I will show you that zoomed in as well. So I'm just taking a little bit off. Where can we find this watercolor paint? You guys are gonna have to help me out in the comments there. If you know who Jeff Bezos is, that's, you know, his thing is where you'd find it. So you can see with this dry brushing technique, I'm just adding little lines. These are going to be the waves. And the paint is breaking over the texture of the paper. That's because I don't have a ton of paint on my brush, because I'm removing it with my paper towel. And you just get this layered look of waves coming in to shore. What color is the gray? It is ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. So we're gonna bring these waves all the way up to where the reflection of the rock is here. So we're just bringing this color just up to there. You can create some slightly thicker waves down here just by pressing down harder with the brush. You could also create some little, like, you know, wavy lines like this where the water is lapping up onto shore. No need to overdo this as well. Just a few lines will just suffice to show what is going on here in the distance. You can also use this to just define the horizon line a little bit. There we go. Yeah, so that really helps make sense of what is going on here. Just a few little lines, but makes a big difference, doesn't it? So I'm making sure to leave some of that pink color showing through. I'm not filling in this whole thing. And we're just gonna do this until we're happy with the number of waves. Sometimes it's good to layer this dry brushing texture over itself just to create a little bit more depth. There we go. All right. Last step. Again, you can keep doing that even after this last step here. Feel free to go back. We're going to make a nice dark color by mixing ultramarine blue and burnt umber again, but just adding very little water. This will create almost a black color. It's kind of a dark brown. So it looks like that. This is our darkest color that we'll be using. And again, using the tiny brush, we will just add some rocks and, yeah, just some rocks in the distance here. I will move the reference photo back onto the page so you can see where they are. Here we go. Zoom that out for you there. Should be able to see that now. So we're painting in these rocks that we can see right here. I feel like, okay, it's just bright in here. That's why this is dim. Got overexcited with the lines and went all the way down the page. Oh no, that's okay. You'll know for next time. I'm gonna put a rock right here. We're gonna try and just have some nice flat bottoms on these rocks. Feel free to add as many or as few as you like, but it just kind of helps bring the water together here. I'll add one right here, going off the page. Don't like make perfect rocks here. I'm kind of just dabbing my brush onto the paper, and whatever it makes is what it's gonna make. You can add a few over here if you want. And then just to bring that together on any rocks that are down here, we'll just add a little bit of a reflection with horizontal lines and that dry brushing texture again. Blend that out with a damp brush too. So for that, and I'm not doing that to any rocks that are in the water, so if there's waves below them, I'm not going to do that. But for this rock here, because it's more onto the shore, I'm adding that same color underneath it and just blending it out with a damp brush. That kind of stuff just takes a little bit of feel, so don't worry if you don't get it right away. Makes sense. There you go. All right, and I think with that, I'm gonna go ahead and call this good. Maybe let's see, I gotta check the reference photo. Maybe I'll add just a little bit more of this ocean color just to really bring this together. Doesn't have to look like the reference photo exactly. In fact, it hardly ever does. But that's not the point. The reference photo is there to inspire you and give you a feel for the realism, but paintings are not meant to be exactly like reference photos, unless that's your thing, unless hyperrealism is your thing. It is not mine. All right. Why is my ocean pink? Mine is a little pink too, but that's good. That means it's reflecting the sky. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign my painting here down at the bottom. Feel free to do the same. And I will remove it and show you how to remove a painting off of a watercolor block. So these blocks specifically come with a little tool. And it's just a little plastic leaf. You just slip it between this paper and the next one, and then carefully just run it along the edge, and you break the seal of the glue. You could just use a palette knife or a butter knife. Something like that would be fine if you don't have this tool. I have no idea how yours looks so good. Mine is absolutely not looking as the reference picture. That's okay. Mine is, I have a lot of practice, and I did paint this painting before, so that's part of it. And you're also relying on me to tell you what to do, and that things can get lost in translation. So don't be too hard on yourself. I hope you enjoyed anyway. And, just because your painting isn't perfect, that's not a reason that you didn't, you still had a successful painting if you learned something. So there's our fresh piece of paper for next time, and here's our painting. So I really hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining me and bearing with me as we navigate the 1984 rules on TikTok here. If you'd like to support me as an artist, you can go to the place where most people put, ways that you can support them. If you just click on my profile picture, you'll see what I'm talking about. I've got my new book coming out soon. I do sell paintings and bookmarks and postcards and stuff on, the typical craft website. I have a Patreon. This video will be uploaded to YouTube later if you'd like to check that out. It is at Hannah Art and Prints. At Hannah Art and Prints. Yeah, here's the block. I've never followed a class in a new painter, and I feel like I didn't do terrible. Good. I'm so glad to hear that. Hopefully 1984 chills out. Exactly. Love every minute of this. Is your Patreon the same as your TikTok? So on Patreon, I do a print club, and I do an exclusive tutorial every month for people who sign up for that. There's different levels to the Patreon, so you can just see what would fit your budget. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Anyway, Paint and Sips are every other weekend. I also do post pre-recorded lessons onto my long-form YouTube, social media channel. And so those are every Saturday that I'm not doing Paint and Sips. But this Paint and Sip will be back in weekend after next. I hope you'll join me. And if you did paint with me, please do feel free to DM me on IG your painting. You could also post it on your story and tag me, same handle, and I can repost everybody's. And thank you all so much for joining me. I hope to see you in the next one.